everyone and welcome to another video. So this is my June wrap up and also my Whateverathon wrap up. So in my video today I'm going to go through all the books that I read for the Whateverathon readathon in June, and most of them were a complete deviation from the TBR except myself. Just as a quick disclaimer, my dog is chewing a bone literally like a few centimeters from me. You can probably hear it as background noise and it's going to be really annoying. But I have no plans on taking away his bone. He's quiet right now, so leave that over there. Like I said, month of June was Whateverathon, hosted by Book Browsing Blog. And it was a really fun readathon to take part in. Now, this readathon came off the back of Do the Thingathon, which ran in the last week of May, and I powered through that like crazy. That was like my run through. I was going to see how I got on, so I know what kind of targets to really set myself for, like daily reading, all that stuff. What I found out was I can't do that length of reading, that amount of reading in a month at the same pace. Definitely learned that much. I learned audiobooks are my saviour. A lot of audiobooks got me through that month. I hit a massive reading slump at the start of the month and read nothing for days, which was not helpful. Like I say, audiobooks got me out of that funk and I started reading and catching up with where I wanted to be. I didn't hit my daily page goals at all. Some days I read an astronomical amount. That's the dog off ski. Some days I read an astronomical amount and other days I read nothing. I didn't want to read anything. And my TBR literally fell apart. It was a good TBR, it hit lots of prompts and got me lots of points, and I just couldn't stick to it for love nor money, basically. So I will show you kind of my end kind of stats from Maddie's tracker. I'll put that up at the end, but let's just start off by going through the books. So the first book that I read was an audiobook, like I said, and this was Come a Little Closer by Rachel Abbott. This book was number 7, I think, in the series. It's the DCI Tom Douglas series. It was fine. It wasn't like hugely anything special. I got through it. It was definitely fairly mediocre. I've been so like disorganized. I haven't even run half these books through Copile yet. If I'm going to go with a feelings rating, I think it's about a 2.5 to a 3 star. But like I said, I haven't done my Copile ratings yet for the month because I'm rubbish. But they will be updated on Copile when I can. Pooch is back. Please don't drop the bone on my laptop. Okay. So, like I say, that was number 7 in the series, so I can't give a full kind of description of what the book was about. The series kind of follows DCI Tom Douglas, and he is a police detective, a police chief inspector? Detective chief inspector? I don't know my acronyms. So he is looking into different crimes. I was reading this series along with my fiance. We kind of buddy listened to them for a little while, and we were enjoying the first few, but then the longer the series went on, the more sort of patterns of things, like the female character was the same in every single book, and a lot of things felt quite predictable, and bad choices were made just for the plot to happen. And this book, which is the lowest we'd rated so far, we didn't hugely enjoy it. It was fine, but really not making us want to read any more. So despite the series has like 10 books in it, I think we're going to give it a stop about here. So yeah, I can't say I would recommend this book that much. I like the earlier books in the series a lot more, but I feel like they kind of went downhill towards the end, and I'm fine with leaving the series as it was. There was no cliffhanger endings that I needed to follow up or anything, so we're leaving it as it is there. So bit of a disappointing first read. Next, I read a fantastic book to make up for it. So the next book I read was Gigadal by Tilly Cole. This released on the 1st of June and was a highly anticipated read for the year, but I actually forgot that it released on the 1st of June, and that's why it wasn't in my original TBR. But had I remembered it was going to come out, I would have put it on there. I'm terrible at remembering when books come out. So that came out on the 1st of the month, and I immediately downloaded it onto my Kindle and I devoured this book. I started reading it at the weekend, sort of the first weekend of Whateverathon. I completely devoured it. I adored it. This is the Deadly Virtues series, one of the dark romance series by Tilly Cole. Trigger warnings here for practically everything. So if you don't like dark romances, don't go near. But if you like your romances dark, then it is a fantastic series. This is the second official book. There was like a prologue-y kind of book, and then Raphael was book number 1 and Gigadal was book number 2. This is following the sort of second of one of the brothers, a sort of brethren. They're not related, but like the brethren, and they have all been abused at the hands of a very extreme sect off of the Catholic faith and traumatized beyond measure. A lot of them have kind of an inner darkness, inner like a bad nature to them. They often like to kill in rather twisted ways. Gigadal was so violent and unpredictable. He wore an electric collar to shock him out of his kind of bloodlust that he experienced, and so he was kind of the totally unpredictable, violent one. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like this one, but it totally fell into one of my favourite tropes, which is like the damaged hero and who totally finds a kind of redemption within a love interest. He meets Noah, who is part of another group of people who've escaped this sect, like a female group that have escaped the sect. And she herself has this dark nature, not as uncontrollable as Dale, but she also deals with this. So she understands what he's going through and kind of knows how best to deal with him. I feel like the camera squint there. Sorry if it was. So she knows how best to deal with him when he's bad, and she can kind of help him through that. So he kind of developed quite a lot as a character with her help. And she was a cool character. I loved her backstory. I loved what she did. I thought she was great. I thought Noah was a fab character. If you saw my mid-year book freakout tag, she was like my favorite character, new character of the year. So I can link that up above as well. I really, really enjoyed this book, and it'll be a 5 stars for me. There's no way. I think I have put this one through Copile, and it was pretty much like 9s and 10s across the board, so it came out as a 5 star. Loved this book and can't wait for the next one. So that was a good, solid second read for Whateverathon. And it was surprising actually, because it actually ticked more of the LGBTQ prompts than I expected, because there was an asexual and aromantic character in there, and she was badass, and I'm like, that's awesome. But it wasn't made like a big deal. It was just, this is what I am, and it was okay. That was just part of her character, and I love that. So surprisingly hit prompts I didn't even know it was going to, and like I say, excellent read. I really enjoyed it. So continuing my derailment of the TBR kind of issues, I got really into listening to non-fiction on audio this month. That was kind of my jam. I don't know why. I wanted to read so much of it, but I really blasted through some non-fiction this month. One of which was Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates. And this book is basically looking at everyday sexism, the sexism that is ingrained in your everyday life, that you're sometimes so used to, you almost don't even register anymore, but how that can kind of escalate into bigger problems. This can be in the workplace, in education, in relationships, in advertising, in movies. She looked at it in every kind of aspect possible, and it was fascinating. I absolutely adored this book. It was so good, and I want to read more of Laura Bates' stuff from this. This is a 5-star non-fiction book for me. I have my own kind of way of measuring non-fiction books along the Copile scale, but I know from how I would mark this in my head that this would come out as a 5-star, and it did when I put it through. Highly recommend this book if you are interested in the kind of the sexism that still goes on in the day-to-day lives of women. She has this website called the Everyday Sexism Project, and she would use kind of experiences from different people within each of the chapters, and I found it fantastic and relatable and thought-provoking and all the things you want, and I would highly recommend this book. So that was another one for Whateverathon in the bag, although not one that I plan to read. I continued with my non-fiction audio reading with Unnatural Causes by Dr. Richard Shepherd. This was the memoir of one of Britain's top forensic pathologists. It kind of went through his career, his personal life, his experiences, and it was a very interesting book. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to all the things he dealt with in his career. I find pathology a very interesting profession, so I really enjoyed listening to it. Bit of a niche one. If you're not interested in that career, then you would probably get that much out of the book. But like I say, I find that kind of things very interesting, and found his stories very interesting and informative. I think this one came out as a 4-star. It did exactly what it said in the tin. There was maybe something lacking there to make it like a standout one, like what Everyday Sexism was for me. But I genuinely really enjoyed and would recommend if you find that topic interesting, as I do. At this point in the readathon, I had a good 2 physical books on the go. I will get to them later. They just took a little bit longer to finish because audiobooks were apparently what I wanted to read this month. And one of my most anticipated reads for the year was a new Maeve Kerrigan book by one of my favourite authors, Jane Casey. But I don't think that book is coming out this year. I think it will now be next year. But she did release another book, I can pop a picture up here, called The Killing Kind. And this followed a lawyer, a barrister, who she was a defender, basically, and she got this guy off of stalking and harassment charges. And then he started stalking her and essentially helped destroy her life. And then it seems as if she is in a dangerous situation. And he comes to her saying that basically he can help her. So it's, do you trust your stalker to keep you safe from someone else that wants to hurt you, kind of a thing. So yeah, this one was interesting. Obviously, it was a different series to the one that I liked from this author. I think it's just a standalone, actually. And me and the fiance listened to this one on our trip to Edinburgh, which happened, I think, what was that? The 19th, 20th of the month. So we went down to Edinburgh to visit some friends and family. So we listened to this on the drive. We had high hopes for this one, obviously, given the fact we love Jane Casey, but obviously a bit apprehensive. Would it be as good as the Maeve Kerrigan books? No, it definitely wasn't. I think Ewan liked this book slightly more than I did. I thought it was fine. I don't know what it's going to come out as in compile, but I would estimate somewhere around the 3.5 kind of bracket. I thought it was fairly decent. I can't say I really related to any of the characters. I find stories from defenders' perspectives quite difficult, because I find that kind of a difficult job to understand, and how obviously you can defend people that you know are guilty and be okay with them getting off with what they were doing, essentially. So yeah, I think the characters were fairly decent. The plot was fairly decent, if a little bit like convoluted at times. And I thought it was fine, but I didn't connect to it that much. It was fine. It was just fine. So a little bit of a disappointment, because I was hoping this one would be a bit more like Maeve Kerrigan level. Apparently it's just that series that I'm really into, so that's sad. But that book was read, I gave it a go, and I will wait impatiently for the next book in my beloved series to come out. But that was the next book that I read, and one of the last audiobooks that I read as part of Whateverathon. So naturally, I did start another audiobook. We'll get back to that in a minute, but let's move over to some of the physical reads that I did. One of these books was one I read on my Kindle, which was Radiance by Grace Draven. I can pop a wee photo up there. And this follows, what's her name? I can't remember the name of the protagonist. It's a difficult name. It's like Okoye? Okole? I can't pronounce her name. And why can't I remember the names of the characters in this book? Brishmi? Okay. I can't remember the characters' names. They were strange sort of fantasy names. I can't remember them. The woman was a human and part of the Gauri people, and the man was a Kai, who is a non-human creature? People? However you would say that. He has sort of dark greyish skin. He's got fangs that are really sharp. He's got like really dark eyes, very long and lithe body. Their eyes aren't good with sunlight, so they're nocturnal people. So basically humans find Kai repulsive and Kai find humans repulsive. A lot of it's based on eyes, but they don't find each other's species attractive at all. Sorry if my camera's moved there. The dog may have boofed it coming to say hi. So the two people do not find each other attractive at all. They're very, very different. I think, what was it? I think the guy said that the humans look a bit like some kind of mussel, or not mussel. I feel like it's some kind of seafood or something. Like, it was not a compliment anyway. And she basically thought he looked a bit like a corpse. So yeah, they were basically spares in their equal sort of royal family types. The Kai's brother was going to be the ruler, and she was a cousin of someone, but important to their people. And they were put into an arranged marriage, and just to broker peace and trade routes and things like that between their peoples. And this was a great book. I loved this book. It was sold to me as like a really healthy romance. People who come together in arranged marriage are very accepting of it, and they become good friends, and then it becomes stronger feelings. And it was exactly what it is. And it's, I loved it. I loved it so much. They were just so good together, and I adored them as a couple. As they were getting closer, you were like, oh my God, please just love each other. Shipping them so hard. I wanted everything to work out for them. And there is there's a fantasy element, a plot behind it. It's not like, I wouldn't say the plot is the stronger part of it. I would say it's the development of their relationship is what makes this book so brilliant. There is a plot that I think will continue into the next sort of 2 or 3 books, I think. And I can't wait to get to those. I have bought them immediately, and I will read them very, very soon because I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what happens. It was just, they were both outsiders in each other's world, and they had so many issues and they overcame them, and it was just so good. So I'm so happy I read this book. I absolutely loved it. So that was Radiance by Grace Draven, and yeah, such a good read. So we're into the final couple of books that I finished this month. I shall go back to the final audiobook that I read this month, which was Invisible Women. Again, I'll pop the photo up in there. Invisible Women by Carolyn Criado Perez. And this was another book very much in the vein of Everyday Sexism, where it shows kind of the gender data gap between men and women in society, and just showing how so many things were based on how men live their lives and function. You know, going from like development of buildings and streets and cars to medication for like heart disease, and they're like in mental health conditions and laws and so many things where women were they were not considered in the decision making at all. Men were considered default and women were not. And it's crazy how many of those things still survive today. And it was a really, again, eye-opening and thought-provoking book that I highly, highly enjoyed. Another 5-star read for me, mind-blowing. Absolutely loved it. I did really well with audiobooks in this month, and this was another cracker. I really, really enjoyed it. So, the final 2 books that made up my reading in the month of June. We've got some physical books here finally. So, Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. Obviously, this book is a bit of a booktube darling. Everybody raves about this series pretty much. I mean, some people don't enjoy it as it goes on, but generally speaking, most people seem to like this first book. And yeah, I would say I also do. This book follows Nancy, and she is one of the few children that attend Miss Eleanor's school, Eleanor West. So these are children who have found doorways into other worlds. It's a portal fantasy. So children that have found doorways into other worlds. Some of these experiences have been really, really good, and some of them have been not so good. The children have come back to sort of the real world, or like kind of where they came from. Some are wanting to get over what they experienced there. Some are wanting to go back. And it's just basically a school of children who are struggling with this situation quite a bit. And this one is Nancy. So Nancy went to an underworld, basically. So she went to a world where it's like sort of death and skeletons, and maybe not skeletons. Was that a different kid? I'm not sure. But basically an underworld type world. There are several worlds. Some are like cotton candy and fluffy and unicorns, and some of them are like dark and dingy and scary, and some are really nonsensical and some are really logical, and it explains quite a lot of it in the book, but it's quite a complicated kind of theory. I really enjoyed it. It's very short. Obviously, it's tiny. It's a fairly quick read. I read it over a couple of days. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm curious enough to keep reading. I have yet to put it through call pile, so this is a bit of a rubbish wrap up. I will, if I remember, I'm going to put my call pile ratings on the bottom, I think. So this one, I think, if I'm going to guess, it's going to be about 3.5, maybe 4. We'll see how it comes out on call pile. But I did enjoy it enough to keep reading. And I think I will, like I say, I think I will continue to read. Not mind-blowing, but a good read, and I'm happy I read it. So yeah, pretty good start to a series for me. And the last book to talk about for Whateverathon 2021, hopefully there's more than one, is Cersei by Madeline Miller. Now, this one here was quite a challenge for me. Cersei is obviously the Greek myth retelling of the goddess Cersei, daughter of Helios. So obviously there's not a great deal to kind of say about the plot of it. It is a retelling of her life, her story, her myth. And she is exiled to an island for performing kind of magic on another goddess. So obviously this is like a big no-no, and she got exiled because of it. She is exiled to live on this island for the rest of her life. Now, I honestly thought she never left the island because I didn't actually know her story. But she actually left the island a couple of times within rules, pretty much. The rules of the gods are pretty much what they decide to be on any one day, really. So if it benefits them for her to leave, she leaves. If it benefits them to stay, she stays. But yeah, this was a very interesting story about her loves, about her family, her child. And it was really actually good overall. I started listening to this tome as an audiobook, and I retained nothing. The information just washed over me. And I thought, because I've been enjoying audiobooks so much and I had the audiobook for this, I was like, clearly audiobooks are the way to go. Not for this, it wasn't. I didn't like it. Like, the narrator was good, the pacing was good, I liked the voice. I can't fault the audiobook, I really can't. But it just wasn't working for me. I couldn't retain the information. So what I thought I'll do is I'll read it and I'll listen to it alongside. A lot of people do this, I've never done it before, but it might kind of enhance the reading experience for me. So I think I read more than half of this book while like listening to the audiobook while reading the physical copy. And that was fine. I was chugging on away doing that. I was getting more and more into it as time passed on. And it was fine. It was fine. I thought it was quite interesting. I do enjoy Greek myth retellings. But I was kind of lacking something, and I don't know what it was. By the end of this book, so I did a reading challenge to finish my last few books of Whateverathon. I can link that up above. I stopped listening and just read the book. And I liked it so much better when I was just reading the book. So I feel like I did this book a bit of a disservice, unfortunately, by trying to listen to it, then trying to listen and read. I don't know if it was just this book and if it just went in my head better as a physical read instead of the other formats. But I liked this book a lot better when I could just read it physically without listening, without doing anything else, and then I powered through. And like I say, overall I really enjoyed it. I think it's going to come out at about a 4-star. Very well written, and I enjoyed the plot overall. So it was a good book. There wasn't the spark that I wanted. It's not going to be a new favourite, but I did enjoy it. So yeah, bit of a mixed one with this, but I think it was just the way the format was, it wasn't clicking with me. And I guess certain books can be read in certain ways and you can benefit from different ways of reading them. For example, with me and nonfiction, I love listening to nonfiction. I find it so much easier to digest listening to it than it is reading a dense book. But when it comes to fantasy or magically things, maybe things with a lot of information where I want to go back and check stuff, I don't know, maybe that's what it was. This to me was better reading as the physical book. I don't know how other people feel about that, if that's an unpopular opinion or not, I'm not too sure. But I did like it overall. So that is a fairly quick roundup of what I read for the month of June and the books I read for Whateverathon. So as promised, I'm going to pop up here in the screen kind of the numbers, the books I read, the page numbers, and I think the final status, which I think was deity. I'm happy with what I did. My goal obviously was 8. I read 9. It was a much bigger challenge than I thought I would find it, and I'm not sure if next year, if this happens again, or if there's any other kind of versions of it, I might not set such a strict TBR for it, because I'm such a mood reader, and although I can stick to TBRs sometimes, this month I spectacularly failed and TBRs were not my friend. So I read what I wanted. There were a couple of books like this one, like Cersei, that I was like, I'm gonna read it. But for the start of the week, I was in a reading slump and I didn't want to pick up anything on my TBR, and that really hunkered progress a little bit. So that was the month. Obviously, Whateverathon featured in 4 weekly vlogs. I can link a playlist or one of the vlogs or something up above. So like I say, I vlogged the process. There was a lot of non-reading days going on, but I did vlog the experience if you are interested to check that out. And that will be all from me today. No, it won't. I am lying. There was one more thing that I was going to do in this video. Hold on. So, the part of the video that I almost forgot. Tackle the TBR book. So, update on Tackle the TBR. Is it nearby? It's on here somewhere. Last month, I was meant to read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I did not read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. So it is now on with this month. I have to still try and read that book this month. I really, really hope I will. Like I say, TBRs were just not my friend. And that is why I do one book in the month to read. Because I figure if I can do anything, I can read one book from this jar. But because I was trying to follow a TBR for something else, that one book just felt like too much and I did not read it, but it is still on the agenda. However, I am going to pick my next prompt. This will be the prompt for July from my jar. So, if I'm smart, I can try and make this book fit one of the prompts that I already have a go in for Path or Pantheon or for Path or Pantheon or for Olympic Games, but I can't actually remember what they were at this point. So, read a romance to give love a chance. That is the prompt for July. Read a love book. A love book? A romance book. Do I have any romance books on my TBR? I don't think I do. I don't think I do. What could I add in? I mean, I have Aristotle and Dante, Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This is a book that I want to read as part of the readathons for this month. Does that count as a romance? I'm not sure. I have Bridget Jones's Diary. Does that count as a romance? I don't know if it does. There is a love interest. It could work. It could work. Is there any other romance books that I could read that I really want to read? Oh, I could also read, if I can get the smudgy Yankee mark off it, Get a Life Chloe Brown. Why don't we leave, let's go with this one. Get a Life Chloe Brown. This will be the one that I choose for July. It's meant to be a cute little romance between these guys right here. So, there. This is the book I'm going to use for my July TBR. Tackle the TBR book. It's a fairly recent haul as well, so at least it won't sit here for ages. That is my dog. Yeah, you're not meant to be in this video. So, that is now the end of the video for my June wrap up. That is now the end of the video. That's my June wrap up, my roundup of everything I read for Whateverathon, and I've picked my next prompt for July's Tackle the TBR book, and I have to go and catch up on that. So I have a lot of editing to do because I've been a bit rubbish lately. So I'm gonna go edit and probably eat some pizza. And my dog's just jumped up on the couch. So I'm gonna leave you right there. Things are getting a bit chaotic over here. So I will see you for another video very soon. Bye.